Yo, what's up everybody? My name is Isaac Don Cordy, and today I have a really interesting tutorial. So lately on my Instagram I've been posting a lot of pictures of my composites on Photoshop, and I've been trying to start this movement where people ditch Lightroom for a little bit and they develop the courage to start using Photoshop, because I believe that Photoshop is such a powerful tool, and simply because the interface is a little bit more complicated, people are afraid to use it. And this is just something that I've noticed. So I'm making this tutorial in order to teach you the similarities between Photoshop and Lightroom. And all of the edits that you can do in Lightroom, you can also do in Photoshop with much more. Okay, so we're just gonna jump right into it. I've already uploaded the images and I have them open both in Photoshop and in Lightroom. Okay, and then the tutorial today will just be covering the camera raw filter that is found in Photoshop, which is essentially just a Lightroom that's already built into Photoshop. So you can ignore all of those scary tools for right now that are found in Photoshop, and you can just think of your Lightroom roots, okay? So the first thing that I'm gonna do in this photo, I already have it uploaded. So on this side, we've got Photoshop, obviously, and then this side is Lightroom. I've shrunken them both down just so they can both be seen on the monitor. And then what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to open up the camera raw filter, which is essentially the built-in Lightroom in Photoshop. And we're just gonna do the exact same edit, but do it in Photoshop, okay? And the reason that I love Photoshop so much is because all of my roots, I also learned on Lightroom. I learned how to edit photos on Lightroom, so I feel comfortable in Lightroom. However, there were so many different things that I was doing in Photoshop after I would edit in Lightroom. And it's just much simpler and much more powerful when you're able to do it all in one application. Okay, so we can do the same thing in Photoshop, okay? So we're gonna go over here, we're gonna move to Photoshop, okay? You can still see the adjustments that I've made here in Lightroom. So just to make the comparison, what we're gonna do is we're gonna come up to the filter tab, and we're gonna go to here, camera raw filter. The shortcut is Shift Command A. If you press Shift Command and A, it'll just bring up this right here, which may look very similar to the Lightroom sliders and adjustments that you have. Okay, so on here you have all of the basic adjustments, the ones that we were moving here in Lightroom. Okay, so we're just gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna pull up the exposure a little bit. Okay, do the same thing with the highlights. I'll drop them down. We're gonna do the exact same adjustments with these sliders that we did in Lightroom. For the sake of this tutorial, what I'm gonna do is show you the tools that are found in Photoshop that are also very commonly used in the Lightroom adjustments throughout the editing process. So first of all, you have all of these basic adjustments, right? And they're in this tab right here. So it's divided up into these tabs, and you can kind of tell what tools are located. Okay, we've got all of your basics here, which are found right here in Lightroom. Scroll down and you have your tone curve, okay? The next tab in this camera raw filter in Photoshop is your tone curve. So I can apply the exact same curve to this image that I would apply over here using this tone curve. I'm gonna continue going through this. So you've got your histogram here. Okay, the next tab shows sharpening and noise reduction. Okay, that's also found under your details tab here in Lightroom. Okay, so I've got all my sharpening tools, my noise reduction. I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up just to show you what it looks like. If you zoom in, you can see a bigger difference right here as well. This portion, this window will show you which adjustments have been made. And so if I go back, you can see a lot of noise in here. Okay, but just simply to reduce that, I'm gonna go ahead and pull it up slightly. Okay, you can already see a subtle difference. Okay, same thing in here. I can type in the same curve adjustment that I had in Lightroom, and I've got the same image going. So continuing with Lightroom, we're gonna go up. We're gonna see your Hsl coloring and your hue, saturation, and luminance sliders. Okay, just go one more tab over here in your camera raw filter, and you've got it all right here as well. Okay. Something that I'm going to do in this photo is I'm going to take out a lot of the blues in the sky. I think it's kind of distracting from the rest of the photo, and I kind of want to neutralize all of the colors. So I'm going to take out a lot of the blues here. We'll go -90. Okay, I come over here into Lightroom and I can do the same thing. I go to -90 and I've got the same image, right? I've got the same images going because these are the exact same adjustments. And because they're both Adobe applications, the sliders work the exact same way. If I go -90 on Lightroom, it's going to be the exact same adjustment as a -90 in Photoshop. And we've got a pretty beautiful image going on here. And the whole point of this tutorial, once again, is just to show you that all of the adjustments made in Lightroom can also be made in this filter in Photoshop. And then you can make your spot removal adjustments, which cannot be made in Lightroom, okay? So let's continue. Through these tabs, you've got your split toning, okay? So you can add some color to your shadows. Usually I like to add a little bit of blue to my shadows. I think it looks really good. It gives it a really deep tone. Again, distortion, lens corrections, effects, you can add grains. Some people are into that lately. They kind of want a retro feel, and you can do that here by adding some grain. Okay, same thing in Lightroom. You can reduce the sharpening, you can add grain, okay, and it's all the same thing. Okay, so moving on to some tools that are very common in Lightroom. Everybody uses them for their photos and is unaware, for the most part, that these are also found in Photoshop, okay? So the first one we're gonna look at is the graduated filter in Lightroom, okay? This one is already faded pretty well, but just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm gonna go ahead and create a filter right here, and I can do the same thing here in this same filter without even going into the Photoshop application. And you have the exact same effect that we just did in Lightroom, okay? So that's the graduated filter. The next one is your radial filter, okay? So if I wanted to have more effect on the subject, I think that looks pretty good. Now to do the exact same thing in Photoshop, you'll just come up here, you have your radial filter, okay? And we'll just add the exact same effects here. Okay, so I think that's looking pretty good. And just a couple of other tools. So the brush tool, which is very common as well in Lightroom. If I wanted to brush, let's just say I wanted to lighten up this red here, I could brush onto that, pull up the exposure, and I could just make these adjustments. Now this isn't something that I would always do, but I'm just showing for the tutorial. Look, there's a brush tool here. You can pull up the exposure, the saturation, and all of your sliders that you have in Lightroom as well. Okay, so as you can see, all of the adjustments that are made in Lightroom can also be done in Photoshop with this filter. Okay, the great thing is when I click OK on this filter here, the camera raw filter in Photoshop, it's going to import this image into my project, and then I will be able to edit it the way that I want it to be edited in Photoshop with all of the great tools. There are a bunch of different tools, and I'm going to be making mini tutorials explaining how these tools are used and the most effective way to use them and to build really great composites in Photoshop. But I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope it was beneficial. I don't want people to be scared of Photoshop. I by no means am an expert in Photoshop. However, I love it, and I think it's a very powerful tool, and that when it's understood correctly and when certain techniques are executed well, Photoshop can be a very powerful tool, and it can be much more effective than Lightroom. And so with that, this will be the end of the tutorial. Let me know if you would like to see a specific tool being broken down. Let me know what you thought about this video. Subscribe to my channel for more videos about Photoshop and about my editing process, and I will see you in the next one.